A heart hook is a fairly simple project, but it still uses a lot of the fundamental skills of a blacksmith. So let's see how we made this hook. I'll go ahead and start the hook by drawing out the end that I will eventually split for the heart. This allows you to draw out both sides of the hook at the same time instead of trying to draw them out separately after you split it. That'll make more sense as you see it split. While I'm at it, I'll just knock the sharp edges off the body of the hook. That'll save me a little bit of time later. To work on our hook, I'm going to need to split it, and I'm going to need to punch some holes. For those two tasks, I'm going to use the chisel and the punch that we made as part of our $500 blacksmithing startup setup. That was several months ago, back in June maybe. I'll link to that video up here if you haven't seen that already. We'll also need just a scrap piece of mild steel. So a little sacrificial piece of steel you can cut into will help your chisel last longer and keep you from gouging up your anvil. And that makes our next step splitting the top part of the heart. Now let's get on with the splitting. I go ahead and do the initial splitting without the cutting plate under it. As long as you're not going to cut all the way through, you don't need it. But if you think there's a risk you'll cut all the way through on this first pass, by all means, put the cutting plate under it. Now that I've got it established and I may start breaking through, I've got the cutting plate in there. This does make it slip a little bit more sometimes. You may have to reset the holdfast a few times during the cut, but that's really not a big deal. It's really easy to clamp work in a vise to open up a split like this, but if you don't happen to have a vise, the holdfast can make it all possible right at the anvil. Now I want to get this opened up so that the spread is even. You want the same angle on both the legs. That makes your life a lot easier in the long run. Holdfast also makes it possible to hold it and file it. This anvil rocks quite a bit. My brick floor is a little bit uneven and the flat bottom stand tends to rock a lot. If that's a problem, you can use a fabricated three-legged stand and they sit stable pretty much anywhere you want them. But the smaller points of contact on a brick floor make it more likely to crack the brick. So I like to go with the bigger stands. For any kind of a permanent use, I would set it in the ground, or if you have a concrete floor, you can find a way to bolt this down. Alternate working both sides, trying to keep everything even as I scroll this up. Just work slowly so you can keep it all symmetrical. Here's the heart. Now it's time to punch some holes. This thin strap cools off pretty quick while I'm punching, but when you flip it over, you're actually trying to shear the slug out, and having it a little bit colder does help the slug shear out, so it doesn't need to be real hot at that point. And I'll go ahead and put my touch mark on it. If you're just starting out, don't worry about a touch mark. That's something you can add to your set of tools later on. Then I'm going to start drawing out the part that will become the hook. And I'm doing this over the horn initially. This is more efficient than drawing out over the face. Then I'm going to go ahead and cut this off with a Hardy. This is one we made in an earlier video. I'll put a link to that video in the top corner. It's better not to cut all the way through on the Hardy. That can damage your hammer and the Hardy itself. Plus it makes the work fly across the shop. So breaking it off with a pair of tongs when it gets close is the ideal solution. I just want a nice even taper down to the hook. What the shape of the hook is really up to whatever you see in your head. There's lots of different ways you can do this. The end thin nicely. I'm going to go ahead and put a little curly Q on it. and then shape the hook over the horn. So one advantage the induction forge has, it's real easy to get the heat just right where you want it, and that way the little curl isn't hot. If the curl does get hot, go ahead and quench it so you don't crush it when you're shaping it like this. Here again, using a vise to make final adjustments on a small project is probably ideal, but without a vise, a holdfast will get the job done. I'm going to finish this hook with a little bit of paste wax. This is Forge Finish, sold by GH Fabrication or Zax Wax, and it should be available on their website. And it's been a good substitute for the Johnson's paste wax. That completes a relatively simple project that still uses a lot of the fundamental skills of a blacksmith. And I think this is a good kind of project to work on if you're just getting started out. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, love it if you hit that like button down there. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. And then make time in your day to get out to your shop. But stay safe, wear your safety glasses. We'll see you for the next video.